Week 16 semifinals. We're here. We made it. No days off.
Never.
Even though there was football today, and obviously we weren't here to help you start Calvin Austin or Isaiah Likely.
And we would have. Those
we
probably
sure would have.
Both of those guys would have been involved in what we talked about.
And they have been on past shows. Well, what do you got? What do you got for this week, Sam?
I've got some streamers. I didn't go too terribly deep on sleepers because I figure if you've made it this far, you're probably not scouring the waiver wire right now because there's not buys or any of that kind of stuff to deal with. So I will go, we so often do tight ends for the people. And so I don't see any reason why we shouldn't both have one. So I'm going to, even though everybody's been talking about him, I'm going to go ahead and say Brenton Strange. At first I didn't want to put him out here because literally everybody is talking about him. And he's probably going to be the subject of more than a few start and sit questions tomorrow. But he's still only 30% rostered. Last week he had 12 targets and he caught 11 of them. 12 targets, in case you're wondering, because I know you need to know these things. That is the total amount of targets that he's had since October 27th. So without Ingram on the field, he is blowing up. So 11 catches, 7.3 or 73 yards. It's not a great depth of target, but he was racking them up, and I'm surprised that he didn't find the end zone. So I think there's a good chance he could this weekend. And I'll just go on record and say I have him currently ranked ahead of Laporta, ahead of Kraft, ahead of Kincaid, ahead of Ferguson. So that's how much I believe in what he can bring to the table for tomorrow's games.
Yeah. Brenton Strange is like the streamer of the week. You got to pick him up. You got to play him. I'm confident he's going to be a middle of the pack tight end one this week. If you take his production from the games that Evan Ingram has been out and you extrapolate that out to a full season, he'd be the tight end 7 right now in PPR scoring. And Mac Jones has proven competent enough to get the ball to at least Brian Thomas Jr. and Brenton Strange. He's fueling our fantasy assets. There's no target competition in that offense. They're all gone. Gabe Davis is gone. Christian Kirk is gone. Evan Ingram's gone. But I got another tight end for you.
Oh, okay.
And I think, because it wouldn't be.
I said we should each have one.
We always do tight ends, I feel like. I took a couple weeks off from tight ends. We're back. How about Chig Okonkwo? Chig Okonkwo, he's kind of a fun streamer this week. He has 20 targets over the last 3 weeks, including 10 last week in week 15. He went 8 receptions for 59 yards. He's a big play receiver, 4.5 speed, 245 pounds. And we saw that back in week 12 when he took a pass 70 yards for a touchdown. This is a tight end we're talking about, taking a ball 70 yards for a touchdown. He has 3 top 10 tight end finishes this year, including twice inside the top 6. Remember, just a couple years ago, Chig Okonkwo was being hyped as like the next big breakout tight end.
Yeah.
After he finished strong as a rookie. That was just last year. Now he's going to match up with the Colts this week in Indianapolis. The Colts have been the number one easiest matchup for the tight end position this season, according to adjusted fantasy points allowed. They've allowed a tight end to score a touchdown in 3 of the last 4 games. I don't think the quarterback change from Will Levis to Mason Rudolph is really going to make any difference in this offense. In fact, 5 of his Week 15 targets came from Mason Rudolph after Will Levis was benched in that game. So I think Okonkwo is going to be able to utilize his track speed to its fullest extent in the dome, in the artificial turf, perfect conditions in Indianapolis to make some big plays in that offense. He's a solid play if you're looking for some cheap upside in Week 16 and you weren't able to claim Brenton Strange off your waiver wire.
Well, and not only that, Chig was a little quiet to start the season.
Yeah.
Or at least not consistent. And but ever since DeAndre Hopkins left and they lost that additional target, it's just been, he and Ridley, and then occasionally you get a Robert Woods or a John Mechie.
You're combining teams right here.
Who am I saying? Who am I? Oh, I'm sorry. I am. I'm sorry. I'm a little.
It's all right.
I'm a little out there.
The Titans are no longer in Houston. It's all right.
Right. So not the Texans. But anyway, you get what I'm saying. You get what I'm saying. Yeah. He was inconsistent to begin with. He's been more consistent lately. I just had this conversation actually with somebody like 2 days ago. And they mentioned a couple sleeper names, and they were talking about like Stone Smart and a couple other guys. And I was like, dude, is Chig Okonkwo taken? And they were like, no. And I was like, I think that might be the guy, So I felt pretty good about him this week too.
Who's your next sleeper?
Well, I'm going to try not to combine teams again.
That would be helpful.
Wouldn't that be good? Because I know when you get frustrated, that accent really comes out. So I want to save her from that. I'll tell you what, I'll do one that'll make you very happy. Okay. And I'm going to throw Rome Odunze out there as a go-to this week. I think a lot of people have him rostered. I think he's rostered in about 46%.
Anybody watching this show does, because I've been screaming it all year.
Right. Yeah, but maybe they're like, but that idiot doesn't know what he's talking about.
That's more likely,
yeah. But here's the thing. Rome Odunze, what people like to say is he's had at least 5 targets in like his last 4 games or something like that. It's much deeper than that. In his last 5 targets is the floor. In his last 7, he's got 7 targets, 5, 6, 10, 10, 6, and 7. I mean, that is, just because he and Caleb haven't been able to quite hook up to the degree we've been expecting to, doesn't mean it's not going to happen here pretty soon. So I think a lot of people probably have him rostered, but they're not, but they're looking past him. And I'm here to tell you, if you're going to play him, playing him against the Detroit Lions is probably the time to play him, because the Detroit Lions are very susceptible to passes on the outside. They give up a ton of points to wide receivers. Matter of fact, the first time they played, they gave up 160 yards and 3 touchdowns to Keenan Allen and DJ Moore combined. That tells me they're going to try to clamp down on at least one of those guys, which means Rome is going to be running free or at least in some one-on-one coverages. So Caleb's going to have an opportunity to hit him for sure.
In the Lions defense, they're rolling out skeletons at this point in that offense. I mean, that defense.
They really are.
So it only takes one miscommunication in that secondary with new guys who haven't been there all year, who haven't been practicing or playing together, and Rome Odunze is breaking free down the field. Because part of why you mentioned the connection just hasn't quite gotten there yet with Caleb and Rome Odunze, part of that It's because when Caleb is targeting Roman Dunze, it's 40 yards down the field.
Right.
Those are high volatility plays anyway, low efficiency, low percentage plays anyway. What happens when those start connecting? And this could be a week where that starts connecting because we still have a really high-powered offense on the other side with the Lions. They're going to score a lot of points. Bears going to be playing from behind. They're going to have to keep up with that. They're going to have to throw the ball a lot, try to get those big plays down the field. All it takes is one 40-yard touchdown to Roma Dunze, and you get a bunch of fantasy points.
Yeah. And I mean, and it's not like he hasn't had some success. I mean, he just had 18 fantasy points week before last against San Francisco, who's not exactly a slouch against wide receivers. You know what I mean? And that was his second highest total of the year. I think he scored 20 against Indianapolis early this season.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think if you're looking at your bench, when you would normally look past Roma Dunze, maybe it's time to give him a fair shake. I would say his floor this week is 10 points.
Yeah. Buy him in Dynasty. Let's move on to a quarterback. And this guy is named Drake Maye. I've talked about him on the show once before, I believe.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And he's been a top 12 quarterback in each of the last 2 weeks. He was a QB 10 against the Colts, and he was a QB 11 last week against the Cardinals. He's now been a top 14 quarterback in 5 of his 9 starts. The only one that he finished outside the top 18 was the game where he laughed against the Jets because he had a concussion.
Right.
He completed over 80% of his passes in each of the last 2 weeks. And he's reached a 75% completion rate in 3 of his last 4. He's playing good football. That's not the problem here. And he's also top 5 in rushing yards per game among quarterbacks. He's had 4 games with multiple touchdowns. The matchup this week against the Bills are kind of middle of the pack for fantasy purposes against quarterbacks, but the game environment should be rich. The Patriots are likely going to trail big for most of this game, requiring additional dropbacks in comeback mode for Drake Maye. That will not only equal more pass attempts, but it's also going to be more scramble opportunities for Drake Maye, which is where he's been scoring so many of his fantasy points.
He's fun to watch run, man. I'll tell you what. I think everybody knew he had some of that ability coming out of college, but they still kind of viewed him as strictly a pocket passer. And man, when he gets on his horse, he can really move.
Yeah. Us as Patriots fans are feeling comforted by the fact that at least we have Drake Maye. We have a terrible coach. We got a terrible offensive line. We got no skill position players. We got a bad defense. But at least we got Drake Maye to hang our hat on. And you mentioned the scrambling ability. Gerard Mayo, speaking of terrible head coaches, Gerard Mayo indirectly criticized offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt this week for not utilizing Drake Maye on more designed quarterback runs. So maybe this could be like a unique, like squeaky wheel gets the grease type of game where the offensive coordinator just got called out by his head coach for not doing this. Well, now he's going to do it. So maybe we get a few of those designed runs implemented into this offense for Drake Maye, which could be even more fantasy points. Drake Maye going against Josh Allen, we could be looking at Josh Allen against the future Josh Allen.
Okay, easy does it. You're supposed to save the bold predictions for the end there. I noticed you said you made a comment about us as Patriots fans. What city do they play in? Or like where's the nearest major city to there?
Well, they play in Foxborough.
And the closest major one is
Boston or Providence?
It's Boston.
Okay, I don't think I have a Boston accent. You clearly believe I do, so I'm nuts. But I really don't believe I got one.
I can't remember who it was we were talking about, but there was somebody where it really, really came through. If you could say how you like them apples at some point, I'd really appreciate that.
I'll do my best. Who you
Okay,
got?
maybe after your bold prediction, I guess.
Maybe.
Is that what you got on Drake?
That's what I got.
All right, I got one that everybody's heard of,
Okay.
and he's been picked up significantly, and that is Kendre Miller. I believe I mentioned Kendre Miller on this show last week, and my reasoning was that Kamara was banged up, and that Kendre would probably get some more carries. Well, he did. He got 9 of them for 46, so he was averaging 5 yards a carry. Didn't find the end zone, but I was right about Kamara being banged up because, oh, look, he's not playing.
Yeah. He might be done.
He's out. And I've seen numerous people say that they, are they relying on Kendre Miller? Do they have him inside their top 20? And they're saying, no, I don't. Well, I'm the opposite. I have him up there, man. This guy, if you haven't watched him, he passes the eye test with flying colors. So the guy's 6 foot tall, weighs 200 pounds, has just disturbing lateral movement. His 4.4 speed is not that quick, but because of that lateral movement and his ability to get out of traffic, makes it a lot easier for him to leave people in the dust. And, considering all the other injuries and problems there are on the Saints, I can't see why he's not going to get 22, 25 carries in this game. And he can catch the ball. They didn't ask him to do it a lot at TCU. I think he only had 25 in his last 2 seasons there. But he can catch the ball as well. So, he's not going to be Alvin Kamara, but I do think he's going to fill in admirably. And, if I had, I'm not saying I would absolutely do this, but, everybody's going to be putting Kenneth Walker back in now that he's back. But is he really healthy? And how quickly could he re-injure himself? I'd rather go with somebody with fresh legs.
And Charbonnet played well when he was out, so he's still going to be involved.
They played well. Yeah, and Charbonnet is another one where I'm like, you don't necessarily have to take him out of the flex. But yeah, so I think Miller could be I think he could be a huge boon this week. And I'm specifically going to be checking in on that New Orleans game just to see him run, man. He's fun to watch.
Yeah, and you don't think Jamal Williams is going to get a ton of carries in this game?
Jamal?
Yeah,
no, I don't think Jamal Williams is going to get a lot of carries.
I don't either. I'm probably not quite as high on you as Kendre Miller, but I think he's a top 25 running back this week. You can definitely get a.
Yeah, I mean the guy averaged 6.7 yards a carry at TCU. I mean, that's people have made comments about his speed in the 40, but you don't get those kind of yards by not having some sort of movement and some sort of shake and bake or something going on. You know what I mean?
And we talked about it last week, but the Saints, they're out of it. They're done.
Yeah.
They're in evaluation mode. They want to see, is Kendre Miller a guy that we can count on in 2025 and maybe even beyond? Or do we have to invest in the NFL draft as a strong draft class? Do we bring in a guy to go along with Alvin Kamara in that offense next year? Replace Kendre Miller? Or is this a guy
they just have so many other issues on that team. What they really want is for Kendre Miller to be like,
yes,
I'm going to be the guy.
We can trust him. Yeah. And he's had so many injuries, they haven't had a chance to evaluate that. And they're also going to want to see, hey, can we give this guy 20 carries a week over the next 3 weeks? And can he hold up for that? If the answer is yes, he's the guy.
Yeah. And again, I'll say it, 6 foot, 200 pounds, man. He's not just a little scat back. You know what I mean? He's got power behind him.
Yeah. All right. How about I got a guy who's a little bit more chalky this week. He's kind of my version of your Brenton Strange. He's been talked about everywhere, and that's Jalen McMillan. He's scored as the wide receiver 9 and the wide receiver 18 over the last 2 weeks. He's combined in those 2 games for 9 catches on 13 targets, 134 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns, and over 40 fantasy points. And that came on target shares of 25% and 23%, which are both his season highs. He's involved in that offense now. He's part of that offense. He's a featured character. Baker Mayfield playing well, throwing aggressive, playing confident. And we've seen rookie wide receivers get hot late in the season before. We've seen it. We see it all the time. Maybe this is the beginning of it for Jalen McMillan. Cade Otton is not going to play this week, which means less target competition in that offense.
Cade who? That was it. That was the one. Cade Otton.
That sounds more like, I don't know, British.
Cade Otton.
Cade Otton.
Cade Otton.
He's not going to be out there. So McMillan is going to be much more involved, even more than he's been over the last 2 weeks. You look at the matchup. Buccaneers, Cowboys, highest point total on the week. The Cowboys are the 11th easiest matchup for wide receivers according to adjusted fantasy points allowed. And the Cowboys defense is dealing with a rash of injuries. We talked about the Lions defense dealing with a rash of injuries. The Cowboys are dealing with something similar. That included starting cornerback Trevon Diggs, who is just lost for the season, put on IR. He's done. Jalen McMillan could be a top 36, maybe even a top 30 wide receiver option for you this week. I'm starting him over guys like Marvin Harrison Bust Jr. on week 16.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And he's really shown out the last couple of weeks. And it's almost like we expected him to do more of that early in the season, but it took him a little while to come around.
He's a rookie.
Yeah. And even when Godwin went down, it was kind of who's going to be the guy. And I'm sitting here like, what do you mean who's going to be the guy? It should be McMillan. And they're talking about old man, what's his face? And
Sterling
Shepard.
Ryan Miller.
Yeah. And I'm like, why are you guys dicking around with this stuff when you could just put Jalen out there? But and obviously having Mike Evans across from him helps a lot.
I think part of the problem with the expectations at that point, because I agree with you, I had the same expectation. It's going to be Jalen McMillan. I think part of that was, I think it was week 1, we saw Jalen McMillan go off for a 32-yard touchdown in his NFL debut. So we were like, all right, this guy can play. This guy can play. We knew it. And, it turned out, you know what? He can play, but it's going to take him a little bit more time because he's a rookie to get implemented into that offense, gain the trust of Baker Mayfield, the coaching staff, and really find a role in an offense where Cade Otton was playing hot at the time. I did it just for you. All right. Should we get some questions before we get to our bold predictions?
I don't see why not.
Let's do it. We got a bunch.
Are we going to be here doing questions tomorrow too?
We are going to be 12:20 all the way up to kickoff, just like we do every week.
All right.
So Cooper Kupp is in the chat asking Malik Neighbors or Jalen McMillan.
Why did you say Cooper Kupp is in the chat?
Because Cooper Kupp gave us a donut last week. It might also be Jaden Reed. I'm not sure.
Oh, so clever. This is Neighbors for me all the way. This is the highest I've had him ranked in weeks. I think I've got him as wide receiver 12, if I'm not mistaken.
Whoa.
Yeah.
All right. That is high. I think I have him at wide receiver like 18, 19. But
I think all it took for me is seeing him catch a touchdown last week. And I was like, all right, He finally found the end zone. Bump him up.
He's quarterback proof because he's just going to get targets. He is like a guarantee to get 10 to 12 targets every single week. His floor is 6 catches for 65 yards, 12 fantasy points. That's his floor. And then he gets in the end zone like he did last week. There he goes. And he plays through everything. The dude gets hurt on every catch. How about all right, I don't even know what the hell this says. Should we even try to interpret this?
Miller Patrick.
Is it Patrick Taylor?
No, I think that's Patrick from the Lions. That's Tim.
Who the hell is Miller?
That's Miller from The High Life.
All right, let's not waste our time on this. Carlos is asking Kyler Murray or Aaron Rodgers.
Man, I tell you what, I really like Kyler Murray's matchups, but I've really liked all of Kyler Murray's matchups, and he keeps disappointing me.
Did you see his press conference this week where they asked him about playing in the cold, and he was like,
"Oh shit,
I can play in the cold. No big deal." And he was like, "Wait a second, how cold are we talking?" And they told him, he's like, "Shit."
Yeah. I'm gonna go Aaron Rodgers because I know he's gonna throw 2 touchdowns. And that's good enough for me.
How about Patrick Taylor or Alexander Madison?
Ugh, gross.
I think we're just going to play take off Patrick Taylor and just say 49ers running back versus Alexander Madison.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go with the 49ers running back over Alexander Madison.
Yeah. Ramondre Stevenson or Kendre Miller. This one's for you.
I'm not sure where I have Ramondre ranked, but it's still above Miller. So I'll go with Ramondre.
Yeah, I have him 3 spots ahead of Miller. How about Patrick Taylor, Tyrone Tracy, Kendre Miller, or Alexander Madison half PPR?
Dude, that avatar is awesome for Forever Eagles. Sweet. Taylor, Tracy, Miller, or Madison? Who do the Giants have?
Falcons. They got Falcons. Patrick Taylor. 49ers running back.
Yeah, I'll go Patrick Taylor.
Okay. One more. From William. Geno Smith, Cooper Rush, Drake Maye, or Aiden O'Connell?
Drake Maye.
Yeah, I agree. Drake Maye. All right. How about did you come up with a bold prediction? Because I think we both forgot to come up with bold predictions today.
Yeah, I came up with 2 of them.
Oh, all right.
And William and Daniel, if you hang around after the show, I'll answer that in the chat. Okay. Well, my first bold prediction was going to be. I'm not even going to say it. I'm not going to say it. My bold prediction is that Dallas and Tampa Bay, right? Dallas and Tampa Bay will be the highest scoring game of the week by 10 points.
Okay. All right. That feels kind of Brock Bowers as a top 10 tight end.
Oh God, are you calling it lukewarm?
It's the Vegas has it projected as the highest point total of the week.
Okay, fine. If the Bengals win over the Browns this week, then that means they're going to beat the Broncos and they'll be in the playoffs.
All right, there we go. I like that. I could see that happening. Because Dorian Thompson-Robinson is not beating Joe Burrow.
That's right. He better not.
All right, I like that one. All right, that one's better. Stamp of approval. All right, my bold prediction: Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs with no David Montgomery.
I can already tell you this is lukewarm.
Probably is, because I also forgot to come up with a bold prediction this week. I did it while you were talking. So Jahmyr Gibbs, no David Montgomery, right? No David Montgomery. The defense is terrible, so the offense is going to have to carry this team over the next few weeks. They got good matchups throughout the fantasy playoffs. Easiest schedule for running backs in the fantasy playoffs. We posted on the Ours for Fantasy Twitter account yesterday a graph showing every player with the most carries inside the top 5. I mean, inside the 5-yard line this week. This year, I can't talk. I'm still trying to formulate the bold prediction as I talk. And Dave Montgomery was top 2, top 3 in goal line carries this year. And Jahmyr Gibbs was about halfway down the list as well. So now he's going to get all of them. Which, by the way, this is not part of my bold prediction. Craig Reynolds is sneaky. I almost talked about him this week. I couldn't.
Is what?
Sneaky player.
No, he's not.
Yes, I almost talked about him on the show, but I couldn't quite get there.
Well, I'm so glad you didn't.
He didn't quite qualify, but I wanted to so bad. I kept trying to find a reason to talk about him. I couldn't do it. But Craig Reynolds is sneaky if you need a deep desperation play. Anyway, back to the point. I'm just wasting time at this point. Jahmyr Gibbs.
Longest bold prediction ever.
This is what happens when I forget to come up with one. Jahmyr Gibbs is going to combine for 80 PPR points over the next 2 weeks. He's going to win league.